Hello and welcome to the third short intro to the Intro to Philosophy. So for today's stuff, third class, the starting thing, of course, is attendance. So as I noted before, attendance is primarily important at the beginning of the semester and for some at the end of the semester. For the beginning, of course, it's connected to the disbursement of financial aid. Now, one has to be attending the courses to get the financial aid. And the way I do it in this virtual class is looking at if someone's done something. And probably the easiest way to do it is take the STARS pre-survey. That's automatically, if you complete it, automatically 100%. Or also there's a syllabus quiz as well. And as attendance, comes in, I'll mark it in iRattler. So in terms of the other stuff for today, go back to the announcements. And so for class 3, which is today's class, but again, you can do this at your own pace. The content is the origin of Western philosophy, which looks at, shockingly enough, the origin of Western philosophy. And you might suspect that what is considered today under the label of Western philosophy began in ancient Greece with our good dead friend Thales, who's also considered by some to be the first scientist as well. In terms of who the first philosopher was, we don't know, because it was probably some person who was thinking about stuff long before people were, creating enduring records. And there's always the question historically, like with our good dead friend Thales, it's the first person we know about based on, sources that survived. And so when we're dealing with the ancient world, there's all the usual questions about what stuff are we missing because we only have fragments, left over from long, long ago. And there's a question of the accuracy, etc. But as far as most experts believe, Thales is credited with being kind of the first Western philosopher. Now, also in Greece, there were these folks known as the sophists, of course, in the Greek term, and they were kind of the enemies in the sense of Socrates. And the sophist, if you look at the video, you'll see that although they began in ancient Greece, they're alive and well today. No, not the original sophists, of course, they're super dead, but we have modern versions of these sophists. And they are considered, in many ways, to be kind of the natural enemies of philosophers. And of course, philosophers are the natural enemies of sophists. And one of the ways, if you really want to insult a philosopher, is call them a sophist. Now, probably the most famous philosopher of all is our good dead friend Socrates. Socrates, of course, was the teacher of Plato. Socrates himself didn't write anything down in terms of philosophical works. And there is the question of how much of the works that Plato wrote about Socrates, how much of those are genuine Socrates? Because we don't have his writings, because according to what Plato said, Socrates didn't write out philosophy. That was about, talking about stuff. And so there's Socrates' background, and he probably heard of the Socratic method. Everyone, business and so forth likes to use it. I think it's still a thing, but anyways, it was probably still a thing. So the question is, what is the real Socratic method? And it has essentially the components of argumentation, surprisingly enough, and of course the method, one of the things he's best known for is counterexamples, where he'll argue against something, a definition, by arguing that what is being given, he'll present an example that goes against, that particular definition typically. And he is known for that. And provoking people, spoilers, is one of the reasons why he got killed, which will be the subject of the apology and the paper. So kind of the main stuff for today, again, is if you haven't done so already, do something in the course to get a score on it, and I'll go to iRattler. I check this every day, upgrade the attendance. Once a person attends, mark them as attending. I've mentioned that there's 2 important days for attending. One is first attendance, which governs the release of that financial aid. And for some students, hopefully nobody, in the class, is the difference between a F, failing grade, and a WF, walk away failing. The difference is essentially they're both failing grades, but a WF is worse because with a WF, what occurs is that it's a special kind of grade that's bad. It connects into financial aid, etc., but it's bad. And the way to avoid a WF is, best of all, pass the class. Second option, worse, but not the worst, is to, if a person is failing, to do some work in the class after the date that's considered. There's every semester there's like a date where a student has to attend to, and as long as they attend after that, even if they fail, they don't get a WF. And so the best way to avoid that is pass. And the second way, which is far worse, is to, if you find you're failing, which I hope you don't, make sure like you do stuff, up until the end, or at least do something, so that way you've engaged with the class. All right, so that's the stuff for class 3. And again, you can do this at your own pace. So you may be seeing this, in the future. So stay safe, and I will see you in the future.